Hey, welcome back. It is Friday, the Friday before a hell of a sports weekend here in the state of Indiana. And part of that is the Indiana Hoosiers hosting the number 2 Kansas Jayhawks in a return game in their home series, final game in that series. And I'm joined by Shay Wildeboor from Jayhawk Slant, Kansas rival site. How are you, man? Appreciate you as always.
No, man, I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to this segment, and I know you guys. We'll get into it earlier. You guys were talking about Hunter, and I said it off air. I think Hunter is probably more excited than the Indiana fan, so I'm looking forward to the matchup. I know Indiana's coming off a tough loss, but I expect the Hoosiers to be ready tomorrow, no doubt.
That wasn't a loss. That was just an ass whipping.
I'll let you say it.
I said it. It was an ass whipping. And I'd say a few other things, but I don't want to go down that road.
Well, when a team I think Auburn was 14. I mean, when you hit 14, when you give up 14,
29
threes, right? And I think Indiana was 6 of. I know the most threes they've hit all season is 6, which was Auburn, and they've struggled to shoot the ball. I think they're 31 of 113 all season. So tomorrow, when we can get into it, I think tomorrow whoever has some success from the perimeter might be the team that walks away successful, because Kansas isn't much of a shooting team either. They've hit a few more threes, but tomorrow's going to be an interesting matchup for sure.
Well, and that's a team that Indiana generally has a shot against because they haven't done a good job of defending the three. They haven't prioritized shooting it, but they have done a poor job of defending it. Early in the year, against teams like Wright State and Army and Harvard, those teams just went off on Indiana with 3-point shooting. But Indiana had an interior presence that is so superior that they were beating those teams like that. But you cannot beat teams that have some capability of hitting 3-point shots that also have capability in the paint. And that's where you're starting to get into when you play teams like Kansas. Hunter Dickinson, for example, he can play inside with the big boys, or he can step it out and knock it down from behind the arc. But Indiana has a guy in Kel'el Ware, not as experienced as Hunter is, that can do that. So that's going to be very interesting matchup as well.
Right, and it's good to me. We asked Bill about this yesterday. How they're gonna defend? Is it Kel'el or Kel'el? Kel'el, yeah. How they're gonna defend Kel'el well, and he said that it won't be as much as Hunter as you think. I mean, they're gonna put Hunter on him. I expect a significant amount, but they're gonna throw some different looks at him. He made an interesting point about Hunter in saying that Hunter wasn't necessarily a power big man. He can score in the post, but he's also a guy that's going to step outside. So I anticipate they're going to give Ware some different looks. And to me, listen, if Malik and Kel'el have career nights, and this is a game to me, Jim, where I could see, I know Indiana struggled shooting the ball. This is a game that happens every year for Kansas. It's right before Christmas break. They're facing a team that's coming off a really tough loss, and that team out of nowhere hits 15 of 33s. Their big man has a career game. The fans are going wild. Indiana gets back on track. So to me, this is a game that's really going to test Kansas. And I think it's going to start down low with Kel'el, and it's going to be, to me, interesting to see how they match up, how they adjust, and what happens when Indiana hits them with a run and how they respond. I mean, I imagine Assembly is going to be packed. That place is going to be rocking. It'll probably be one of the best 3 or 4 atmospheres Kansas plays in front of all season. First road game, and they're going to be tested.
Oh, it's the atmosphere will unquestionably be off the charts. That I guarantee you, just because Indiana does not fail ever in that regard.
Right.
We talked about traveling last year. Several people told me that the Indiana contingent that was in Kansas was the most visiting fans they had ever seen in Fog Island.
It was unbelievable. Unbelievable atmosphere by the Indiana fans. I mean, they showed up and they showed out, and they were loud, and you could tell they made their presence known, and it was unreal. I hadn't seen it before. I've been covering this team 21 years, and I don't remember seeing anything like that before.
And they do travel, but that has not transferred over onto the court, unfortunately.
Right.
Indiana has built their troubles are strictly in the backcourt right now. You've got Xavier Johnson, who's out, their senior point guard, and a freshman has been thrust into that position. He's done fine. Gabe Cupps has done a good job at managing things, but scoring has not been something he's added to that, except for he did start in the Auburn game. He started the game with a 3-point shot, which was a little amazing. And then Indiana hit 3 more in a row. Indiana had 4 consecutive 3-point shots in that game to start it with, which tied the most season for a high season at the time. But they didn't hit another 3-point shot until 7 minutes to go in the game. They just don't prioritize it. And there's not sets for that. Mackenzie Mbako, without question, is probably the best shooter on that team. It just has not been able to show up yet. He's not been able to get his confidence, I guess. But they're also, I don't know that the offense is being run. It's still running through the middle, the center, as it has for the last 2 years. And it's not that they don't have great players and options there. Besides Kalel Ware, you've got Malik Renew. Both guys are very good on the interior. Both guys can step out and shoot to a degree, but you've got to have guard play in which not only do they score, but they defend the 3. And Indiana has not done a great job in that area. And that is where they're going to have to, if they have any thought of upsetting Kansas.
Yeah, and I think the thing that Kansas has going for it, a couple things really, Jim. They've got the experience factor. Obviously, you've got Hunter Dickinson, that's played in a lot of big-time games. You got Kevin McCullough, played in a lot of big-time games. KJ Adams played in a lot of big-time games, and DeJuan Harris. So you got 3 or 4 starters, 3 or 5 starters back from last year. To me, Jim, DeJuan Harris has not been the player that he's capable of being. He's turning the ball over really more than he has been his first couple years at Kansas. Not scoring the basketball. Teams are daring him to shoot, and he's not shooting. Last week, Missouri really sagged off KJ Adams and Marco Jackson, KU star freshman. If Kansas is going to be successful tomorrow, they're going to have to hit shots. Indiana is going to present them with that opportunity. The question is whether they're going to be able to hit those shots. And to me, that's and as I mentioned, Bill Self mentioned it yesterday. The team that is most successful from the perimeter tomorrow is probably going to walk away from the win. And listen, Kansas has been tested. They played Marquette. They played Kentucky. They played Tennessee. They played Connecticut. But they haven't played any of these teams on the road. So the question is, how do they respond tomorrow? And I think that'll be a big key for them in terms of the level of their success they're able to have in Bloomington.
Yeah, Indiana's average of 3.4 made 3-pointers per game is almost 5 fewer made shots on average than Kansas, who they're averaging 8 per game. That right there that's enough of a difference, with all things else being equal, that Indiana is going to have to. They're going to have to step up and hit some shots tomorrow. Right. They're going to have to find a way to get 3-point shooters open and to knock them down. Whether it's Trey Galloway, who is not really had confidence in taking that shot this year, or Mackenzie Mbako, who just steps up and gets it done. Because, like I said, he's hit the first 21 free throws of his IU career. He hasn't missed yet, not to jinx him, but that's when you're a freshman, that's pretty damn good to be able. Right. I mean, I know we're talking about free throws here, but this is over however many games now. That's focus, and his shooting is unquestionable. It's just not translated to the court yet, and a little bit of surprise. So it makes you wonder, are they getting him the right opportunities? And I don't still think that they have, because of what the focus has been. Mike Woodson is going to have to make some alterations, and he has been resistant to really changing. His substitution patterns has drawn a lot of criticism. He has been basically around the 8-minute mark, taking a chunk of his guys out. He did that last week against Auburn with a 12-point lead. And when the starters came back in, that lead was gone.
Wow. Well, yeah. Well, I can tell you, Kansas, an emphasis will be the perimeter, defending the perimeter with With Kevin McCullough, DeJuan Harris, Johnny Furphy, some of those guys, Nick Timberlake off the bench, they will have to be ready to defend. Last year, I believe DeJuan Harris was the Big 12 Defender of the Year. Kevin McCullough was up for the National Defender of the Year. So they've got guys to defend. And let me tell you this, Jim, if it comes down to free throws tomorrow, that's going to be interesting because Kansas has had some games where they have flat out they couldn't hit the deep end of the ocean. They've had some games where really, listen, they're 9-1, only lost to Marquette, but they've had some games where they've really had to sweat some games out. That Connecticut game, they missed some free throws, hit some free throws late. They've had other games where they have really struggled from the free throw line. So listen, I don't know what the spread is tomorrow. I'm not a big spread guy. I don't normally check that out, but I can tell you this: tomorrow's game won't be decided until the very end. I mean, I expect this game to go right down to the buzzer. I'm interested to see how, and we kind of touched on this, how Hunter Dickinson responds. He's had some games now where he's kind of been a little bit chippy. Last week against, I think it was Eastern Illinois, maybe, he kind of pushed a guy to the ground. The flagrant foul was called. Wow. You guys have seen him. Yeah, you guys know Hunter. You guys know how he's fired up. He doesn't hold back. He's been really good, averaging close to 20 and 12. I think he leads the nation in rebounding at 12.6. He's hitting close to 60% of his threes. But when he gets in a hostile environment and things are going, he doesn't hold back. So I'm interested to see. This will be the first true road test, and I'm interested to see how this team responds and, maybe how they react to some adversity on the road.
Well, I would bet that the students show up early and often for Indiana tomorrow. And by early, I mean as soon as they can get in. And once they do, it didn't happen a lot, but I've seen it. Games like this, the minute they get in, they're going to be on Hunter Dickinson's ass. And I'm talking about 60 minutes before the game. They will be in his ear, chirping on him. And that's definitely something to keep an eye out for them because they, like you said, Hunter Dickinson is no stranger to the Simon Skjodt Assembly Hall, and neither are the students. And in Indiana, with the largest student contingent of 7,000, they're heard. Sometimes I don't like what I hear from them. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
But they're 18, 19, 20-year-old students, and they will be there making it loud.
Right. And it's not.
Well,
I don't know what's going to happen.
Actually, here's a good point. The students are on break right now, so it'll be interesting how many do show up.
Well, here's what I do know. Throw the records aside, but both blue blood programs. The one thing I will say, Jim, is that Kansas has been tested, and I expect them to be ready tomorrow. Now, if Indiana comes out and has an Auburn-type performance from behind the arc, I don't know if any team can prepare themselves for that unless you can match 3 for 3. And I don't see Kansas doing that. I know I've followed this team long enough to know that strange things are going to happen tomorrow. I believe that wholeheartedly. Indiana's going to come out. They're going to play aggressive. They're going to wear the ball. Malik's going to do his thing. They're going to hit shots. And Kansas is going to have to play extremely well tomorrow. Bill's going to burn some early timeouts. There's going to be some frustration. They're going to have to weather the storm. And how they respond early on tomorrow will dictate how that game plays out. I don't care if Indiana got beat by 70. I don't care that UConn beat them by 20. None of that's going to matter tomorrow when Kansas comes to town, and it never does.
Yeah, that's one thing that Indiana had been known for is didn't matter the situation. If a top 5 team came into Assembly Hall, it was just going to be a fist fight.
Right.
Just a knockdown fist fight because of pride and all of that. I don't know if that has changed much now because how college basketball has changed with so many different players. But the fact that part of that change is Hunter Dickinson being on Kansas. So there's not going to be a lot of change there. I promise you. It's going to be interesting. I hope it is an absolute barn burner of a game. There is nothing that can match that better because as I know you heard in the break, what an absolute crazy day in the state of Indiana. After Indiana hosts number 3 Kansas, you've got number 2 or number 3 Purdue hosting number 1 Arizona.
Oh wow!
And so that takes place at 4:30 So, but also at the same time, the Indianapolis Colts are hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. So
go Colts.
All of that is going on
Wow.
Saturday. It's crazy. There is I wish to gosh though they would have made that NFL game a night game, say 7:30.
Right.
Man, you talk about hitting the Triple Crown. Wow. That would have been fun to do.
It'll be a crazy day tomorrow, man. I expect a great game, and I'm looking forward to it. And let the chips fall where they may. I expect a really highly contested game. It'll be competitive, and I think it'll be one of the better games of the year.